You know, back in the Stone Ages, a teen might need to go out in the wilderness and slay a yak in order to be included in the adult discussions. But then, life was a lot simpler in those days. And with the rapid acceleration of invention and technology, our young people are an increasingly important resource. The San Mateo County Board of Supervisors is definitely listening to the young people. And in 1993, the supervisors established the San Mateo Youth Commission, an advisory committee of 25 young people between the ages of 13 and 21, representing all geographical areas of the county. And in the 25 years since their formation, they've been very busy, and our guest today, Adam Wilson, is going to share some of their accomplishments. Thanks for joining us today, Adam.
Thanks so much for having me.
What kind of projects are the youth commissioners currently working on?
So the Youth Commission, like you said, has 25 members from across the county, and it's broken up into 5 different subcommittees.
Oh,
and so within those committees, these youth are working on different projects which involve policy change or policy recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, events that bring together young people and adults from across the county, or just trying to reinvigorate some of the things that the county is already doing through different initiatives and programs that it has.
So when you say that they suggest things to the Board of Supervisors, and you know, we did say that we are listening to the youth. So the Board of Supervisors really do take into consideration what the youths are telling them.
Yeah, definitely.
They are listening.
Yeah, so the youth will make these recommendations to the board, or they will actively come to the Youth Commission and ask, you know, what do you think about this particular issue, cannabis being a major one recently.
Right, we're going to touch on that in a little bit.
And in the past, tobacco education has been a major issue that the youth actually went to the board and said, look, this is a major issue in the county. And since that time, the Board of Supervisors has taken on many different tobacco-related policies, most recently a flavored tobacco ban in unincorporated areas.
You know, yeah, well, then let's start talking about that, because that's huge right now with the legalization of marijuana, and with, I guess, the students. They're really aiming a lot of younger products toward the students, and how are they handling that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to hear the stories coming from the youth as young as 8th grade on the Youth Commission, and even younger in some of our other work, that they're so aware of the use in their schools and just the prevalence of use across the school has really even just led to having to change their daily routines in some cases, just to accommodate for youth who are using flavored tobacco products or even marijuana products at school.
Now, a lot of the youths that you talk to on a regular basis, I mean, you're pretty tapped into what the youths are going through right now, especially in high school and middle school. Are these things taught to them? I mean, is this part of the curriculum to teach them about these products that are coming out, or is that strictly up to you guys to help?
Yeah, there's actually a tobacco education coalition in the county, and a lot of the work that they do is geared towards getting to young people and kind of telling them about what the dangers and issues related to tobacco use, and especially now vaping and other kinds of ingestion of tobacco products.
It's huge. It's almost an epidemic. So what is their recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on
recently
this?
The Board of Supervisors passed a ordinance to ban flavored tobacco products in unincorporated areas of the county, and with the hopes of going to every city in the county and having them adopt a similar policy, just to help prevent these products from getting to youth more rapidly. And
now you said a key word there, unincorporated. So what exactly does that mean? Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so some of the areas of the county are unincorporated, meaning that they are administered by the county government, and they don't have their own local government that makes the policies for them. So places along the coast, a lot of them are unincorporated, so these policies would directly affect them and resellers or retailers in that area.
So they cannot sell in the unincorporated part?
Yeah, that's the goal of
because it's overseen by the county, basically. Okay.
So like if Redwood City wanted to have a similar ban, they would have to pass their own ordinance at the city level that would correlate to the county's policy.
What's another subcommittee that you maybe want to touch on?
Yeah, so I think one of the major things that one of the subcommittees worked on this year was the Immigrant Youth Committee, and they have written a resolution that was approved by the entire Youth Commission to urged the Board of Supervisors to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day to recognize the history of Indigenous people in the area and the pain that they have been through, and then to kind of move forward as a healing process and to recognize the Indigenous community that is still here. And then on top of that, they would want to have a separate day to recognize the contributions of Italian Americans to the United States and this region in particular. So people aren't necessarily losing a holiday that they feel is important to their cultural heritage as an Italian American. They're gaining something to recognize them specifically.
So on a situation like this, because that's a holiday changer, if you will. So do your youths that are on the committee, they kind of tap into what's going on in the school, what the students are talking about, and then they bring this to a committee level? And is that how a change like this starts?
Yeah, so there's kind of multiple avenues that they'll go through to get this input or feedback. One of them, they'll do surveys or informal sort of group sessions with people at their schools. Another thing that they do is review existing literature. So we have the California Healthy Kids Survey data that comes out every year. And they'll use that as a guiding sort of principle for what is affecting youth and where some change might need to happen. But otherwise, they, talking to their friends, they are young people themselves, and even talking to other youth groups within the county. That's kind of where they get these ideas that something needs to change.
And there tends to be a gap between adults and youths. I would assume that it's probably a goal of the Youth Commission to narrow that gap, if you will. How do they go about doing that? Yeah,
I think that's one of the major issues maybe that we have in government, is just not having that youth voice. And
Correct.
So the Youth Commission, as you said, sort of aims to bridge that gap. And so one of the ways they do that is to make these recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, to hold community events where we're bringing together adults, such as these marijuana education community events that we had that were geared, some of them towards young people, some of them towards parents and adults. One of the committees also had an event. It was a young women's leadership night. And so we brought together about 40 adult allies and young people from across the county. And so we sort of partnered young women with adults who are in all walks of life, from tech to small businesses to even some of them just like stay-at-home moms. And so just kind of getting an idea of what their options are as a career for the future. And that was really impactful. A lot of everyone who came was hoping that we do it again in the future. So we're trying to go for that. Yeah.
Trying to get that going. That sounds great. I mean, and I think adults too really want to get a better understanding of the youth. The youth today is a lot different than the youth was when you and I were kids in school and going through all of that. It's quite different. So I think a lot of adults want to tap into the youth, and that also probably helps with what you do with them. Yeah,
and a lot of times we'll actually have people approach me or my colleagues at the county asking if they can present to the Youth Commission on specific topics. So usually once or twice a month at our meetings, we'll have somebody from outside of the commission come and give a presentation on an issue that they want youth engagement or youth input on. So that's another way that sort of the youth in the community can come and engage with the Youth Commission.
And if a youth wants to be a part of this, can adults be a part of this too? I want to digress a little bit from that. Can adults take part in this? I know it's a youth advisory committee, but
yeah, so it is a county commission, so it is open to the public. All of our meetings are open to the public. We have public agendas that are posted every time we have a meeting, so adults and youth can come and they can speak on any topic that we're talking about, give public comment, give their input on any issue that the Youth Commission is working on, or bring up an issue that they think the Youth Commission should be aware of.
That's really important to know too, that it's just not maybe someone's parent that's involved in the committee. It's any parent that can come and voice a concern. Or
exactly.
Interesting. How does a youth get involved with the committee? And walk us through the process. If I'm 15 and I want to get involved, what do I do?
Yeah, so at sort of toward the end of the school year, around March or April, we'll open up applications, and those will go out through the Office of Education, a lot of times on Nextdoor. So if your parents are on Nextdoor, if you're on Nextdoor, you can always check that out. And then just a lot of outreach to specific areas that haven't been represented before, or demographics that haven't been represented on the Youth Commission. We'll reach out to them, and then you'll submit an application. We'll do a paper review of that in early May, and then hopefully by the end of May, early June, then we know who's going to be on the commission for the next year.
So it's basically a job application.
Yeah.
They apply. Do you interview these kids?
Yeah, so we actually used to do 2 interviews, but trying to be a little more youth sensitive, we now just do 1 interview to kind of ease the pressure a little bit. And we, in the last year, opened it up so that I have sort of virtual office hours where if you need help filling out the application or if you're unsure of something, you could just hop online and I'll be there to answer questions, always through email too. So trying to make myself more available so the application is more accessible to more people.
And a little bit more easier for them too.
Yeah.
Can be intimidating.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially because during the interview, you're meeting with a member of the Board of Supervisors and current youth commissioners.
That's not intimidating at all, right?
Yeah, so sometimes it can be like a 5 or 6 person panel that is interviewing you. So it can be intimidating for sure.
Yeah, but it probably helps them for future things that they're going to have to look forward to. Do you ever reject a youth?
Unfortunately, sometimes we do. Just
what would be a
because
basis of rejection?
I think just maybe not having some of your skills developed enough, like some of your interpersonal skills, or just your ability to relate to other people. Maybe you have an idea of what a leader should be, and you're kind of stuck in that, and that won't necessarily mesh well with a group of 24 other people. And so what my suggestion always is if you don't get on the Youth Commission, to join as a public member, to come to our meetings. And like we talked about, you could just be on a committee and help with a project, see how everything's run, and then to reapply again next year.
I see Friday Night Live on your website. It seems interesting and a fun name. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Friday Night Live started as a means to get youth out of going to parties and engaging with alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. And so they initially started meeting on Friday nights because that was a time that a lot of youth were getting together and especially driving drunk. So this was an opportunity to try and prevent that. And since that time, it's grown into a statewide network of different youth chapters that are working on different projects relating to alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And the Youth Commission is part of one of those chapters across the state.
And you get a lot of volunteers with that?
Yeah, so all of the youth who are part of these programs are volunteers, and they work together to help improve their communities in different ways.
That's great. The San Mateo Youth Commission is connected to the Youth Leadership Institute. It's a mouthful.
Yes.
How are they connected? Can you elaborate with their relationship?
Yeah, so the Youth Commission is run sort of through 3 different entities. There is the County Board of Supervisors, and the county health system, and then the Youth Leadership Institute. So we're all sort of working together in these moving pieces to help coordinate and run the Youth Commission. And at the Youth Leadership Institute, we are a youth development focused nonprofit, and we have over 26 years of experience now with youth development. And so I'm contracted by the county to administer the Youth Commission on behalf of the county.
Oh. And what can we see coming from the commission now?
Yeah, so one of the big projects that the Health and Wellness Committee worked on in the past year is this cannabis education campaign. And so they've been working with the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services at the county to develop an Instagram account that is going to be run by the Youth Commission and youth from outside the commission, actually. And it'll be stories and photo voices and facts about marijuana use and how that affects young people. And it will take you to a website called Cannabis Decoded, which will both be going live at the end of June. So hopefully check that out.
Of course.
And furthermore, next year will be the 25th anniversary of the Youth Commission. So we're looking forward to having some sort of gathering, bringing together some alumni and some new folks and just any public members who want to figure out more about the Youth Commission.
I have to imagine that some of the youths that have served have gone to do some pretty remarkable things. Do you keep in contact with the youths that you've served with that have become adults and what they're doing? I mean, any special stories that you can share?
For the past 2 years since I've been a part of the Youth Commission, I've kind of tried to keep up with the youth that I've worked with, but I know that we've had youth that have gone to Yale and Harvard. We have youth that go to Stanford. So we have youth that are going on to these prestigious schools and then amazing careers afterward. And so part of this 25th anniversary is going to be to bring together some of these alumni that are doing all these great things.
Well, it really sounds like the youth of San Mateo County are really doing some remarkable things, and I'm glad that our politicians are listening to them. That's very, very important. And we're looking forward to seeing what they're going to do in the next 25 years. I mean, after all, the youth of today are tomorrow's leaders. And I'm glad we're encouraging their participation, paying attention to what they're doing and listening to their suggestions. For more information about joining the commission or the committee, visit their website that's located on the screen. And thank you for watching our Take Notice show. I'm Lisa Charney. Have a safe day.